Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed about heaven. It's apparently really hard to get there. Jewish folks don't seem to worry too much about the afterlife. I guess they figure they have enough to be neurotic about down here. But their spiritual descendants, the Christians, those people are downright heaven obsessed, ready to drop whatever they're doing in this life and float up eagerly to paradise. Is floating something you can even do eagerly? I don't know. Anyway, they were smart enough to realize that they didn't want to have to share eternal bliss with a bunch of riffraff. So they made heaven a private club. The overwhelming majority of people who have ever lived, billions and billions and billions of people, won't be getting in. So how do you make it into heaven anyway? Well, here's the thing about that. The admissions policy is kind of fucked. The little golden book version of heaven is that it's the place good people go when they die. Then you grow up and you find out that admission to heaven is less about being good and more about greasing the right palm. Except that it's the palm that greases you, and it doesn't use grease, it uses blood. And if you're not cool with that, you can go to hell. The flip side is, if you are cool with that, you get into heaven no matter how big of an asshole you've been up to that point. Which raises another concern. You might not like your neighbors. Yeah, a few of those who accepted the blood deal at the last minute weren't exactly the most friendly sorts of folks. For instance, your Jeffrey Dahmer, who was baptized shortly before he was murdered while serving a prison sentence for killing and eating a bunch of people. And quite a few of the people who devoted their entire lives to the church aren't exactly swell folks either. If the Bible is to be believed, heaven is positively packed with the likes of Jerry Falwell and Oral Roberts, and eventually we'll also have Pat Robertson and Fred Phelps and a whole bunch of born-again Christians who murdered abortion providers or massacred members of other faiths. I wouldn't feel terribly comfortable knowing one of that lot was one cloud over, would you? There isn't much to do from the sound of it. Not that it'll really matter who your neighbors are anyway. For as much as televangelists like to talk about being rewarded with a mansion in heaven for doing the Lord's work, which always seems to involve irresponsibly large sums of money changing hands in their direction, oddly, it's unlikely that you'll have very much time to relax around the house, what with all of the compulsory God-worshipping going on continuously. The Bible is pretty stingy when it comes to details of the heaven experience, but one thing that it does mention over and over again is the constant, non-stop ass-kissing of the God who made it all possible. And by it all, I mean it all. I'm talking about the all-powerful, all-knowing, eternal, invincible, perfect God who created the universe, which makes his constant demand for applause incongruous, to say the least. So, let's recap. It's hard to get in. The admissions policy leaves a bit to be desired. Your neighbors will probably be assholes and weirdos. And the best advice I can give you when it comes to preparing for your daily activities is bring plenty of chapstick. But none of those 4 things is the worst thing about heaven. In fact, if you rolled them all together and counted them as one thing, they still wouldn't be the worst thing about heaven. The worst thing about heaven is it lasts forever. You can't leave. Ever. No changing your mind, no giving it a fair chance, and deciding the whole ceaseless prayer and supplication to a perfect being who shouldn't require prayer and supplication isn't for you, and moving on. No, nobody leaves. You're stuck. Heaven, paradise, the ultimate goal of billions of Christians all over the world, the best case scenario for their religion is involuntary. You give your life to the Lord, you serve the church till your dying day, and your reward is to spend an eternity in an inescapable place where you have no freedom. Shouldn't any God worthy of a passing smile and nod, let alone unquestioning worship forever, be able to come up with a better heaven than that? The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.